Welcome to Second Take, the show that takes a look at the issues behind the news. President Cyril Ramaphosa has endorsed the Phase 1 report of the Eskom Restructuring Task Team, which supports the creation of a new independent transmission system operator. Terence Creamer joins me to discuss what it means and what is next. Hi, Terence. What is the background to this report?
Well, a very long background is 1998 white paper where it was indicated that Eskom would be broken up into its component parts of generation, transmission and distribution. And that process of unbundling, I think, came into focus again during the extreme load shedding period and then the acceleration of the reform agenda where electricity was really at the heart of those reforms. And we had this launch of Operation Vulindlela, which has got a number of other components too. But in the electricity sector, obviously fixing Eskom was a big thing, and there was a big bailout of Eskom over that to support them through that process. But the reform of the electricity supply industry to de-risk it really lies behind this view that the transmission, the heart of the system, which is currently under the National Transmission Company South Africa, that is the transmission backbone, the system operation, and will be also the market operator. That will be sort of taken out and made independent as a state-owned entity of Eskom. And then the other components, generation and distribution, would be in a much more competitive setting. This is the natural monopoly part of the business, so it makes sense that it remains state-owned, and it's a very strategic part of the business. So there's been a process to look at how this unbundling should happen, and the Electricity Regulation Act that was amended and came into force last year, and that gave us sort of a 5-year time frame for the establishment of an independent transmission system operator. And there's been toing and froing in terms of what form that should take. And in December, Eskom put out its plan that was endorsed by its shareholder minister, which would see the TSO set up, but without transmission assets. And that was a bit of a shock to the market because the view was that it was going to be a TSO with its assets. And in February, State of the Nation address, the president announced that he would set up this task team to look at the establishment of a fully independent TSO with assets and the feasibility of that. And the endorsement of this report basically says this is feasible, and that it's in line with international best practice, and that there's now a phase 2 that will look at how to go about implementing that plan.
What has the response been to the president's endorsement?
Well, it's mixed. The private sector has been a big supporter of this. So the two big business organizations, sort of Business Leadership South Africa, BUSA, are big supporters of the unbundling, and they say it's very necessary to have this, to level the playing field for generation investors. At the moment, you've got Eskom as being both the sort of player and referee in some ways in this space. And the view is if you want consistent investment, you really need the heart of the system to be independent. And so that needs to be unbundled from Eskom, and it should have the assets in place so that it has its destiny, it's in its hands. So there's support from that side. There's a much more mixed reaction from Eskom itself. Obviously, Eskom, had a different plan, which was sort of overturned by the president's SONA statement. So they're looking at that. They're raising a number of red flags around it. They're saying, yes, we support the vision that's outlined in this report, but they raise concerns about the timing of the transmission asset handover. And around that is really that this is a big sort of event for their bondholders, and that there are some risks to them, as well as there's the board has fiduciary duties, and then they raise very much that Eskom must not be left off, worse off financially. Now, we must remember that Eskom is trading with the support of the taxpayer at the moment. That's really how it stayed in business over this difficult period. So this issue about not being left worse off is going to come into focus. And it's not really about leaving Eskom better off. I think this is what people are saying. We need to have this structurally the supporters of this structurally in place to ensure that there's going to be sustained investment into the future in a more competitive setting. And that's really what's been endorsed under this phase one report, that transitioning to a competitive market is going to be important. And this is one of the building blocks that is needed to ensure investment. And as we have competition, hopefully we'll have prices sort of moderating, at least the pace of increase in tariffs needs to moderate. And ultimately, competitive pressures hopefully will start bringing down prices at some point. This is now the big focus of the electricity system, this lack of affordability, especially for large energy intensive businesses, and then a lot of households which are really struggling to meet their electricity bills.
What are the next steps and when will the TSO be created?
So the next steps is really the phase two, the implementation plan, and there's going to be, I imagine, as there has been, contestation around that and around the timing. The Electricity Regulation Act sets a sort of 5-year horizon, so that came into force last year. So by 2030, this should be in place. But there's many slip between cup and lip, as they say, and it's not 100% clear that the executive team and the board are 100% behind this plan, and I think that's going to be necessary to really drive this forward. Really don't have the main protagonists fully supportive. It's going to be difficult, but they have supported it in principle. I think it's around doing this in a way that, one, this issue of Eskom not being left off worse off financially, and making sure that the board that is overseeing this transition feels that they're doing this in a way that they can tick all the boxes in terms of their fiduciary duties. So there is some way to go. It's close, but no cigar yet. So it's not a done deal. But I think that the message is and the signal is very important.
Thank you. That's the Second Take show for this week. Thank you for watching and join us again next time for more news analysis.